Welcome, everyone, to T-Minus the podcast presented by 321. I'm your host, Daniel.
Trevor Theodore.
Jeff Malchek.
It is raining here like crazy.
Florida once again.
We just had our windows washed today, like no joke. And if you look out, it looks like they're still out there, except they're doing the whole building this time instead of one section of flooring.
I think the rain's doing a better job, though.
Seriously, no joke.
A little bit.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Man, being one of those guys would suck, though.
Yeah.
Outside on the side of buildings.
Getting sprayed all day by water just on the side of the building for $10
sketchy.
an hour.
But those little suction cup things were awesome.
Yeah. I had a discussion with somebody else at work today where they're like, man, that must be a high-paying job. And I was like, I don't know, is it? So, went to the Google machine, typed into that, and found out like the median hourly income of window washers is about $13 an hour. High end about $20 an hour.
But feeling like SpiderMan, priceless.
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go.
Hell yeah. I see what you did there.
I see what I did there?
Yeah.
Gotta have some type of fun with the job, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, like, it doesn't seem like there's like 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year worth of buildings to clean around here. I mean, it must be a traveling job, right?
I don't know how much you travel for that job, except up. See what I did there?
All right, moving on. So I came in this morning, logged in as I usually do, and saw this headline from The Verge, which was interesting. And that's Facebook is going to be allowing a paywalled instant articles later this year.
So I know you mentioned that. What does that all entail?
So this is all speculative. This is going to be our little disclaimer at the front of the podcast that Facebook has not come out with an official announcement or statement as of yet. So this is all based on a Reuters article, which is reposted and shared by The Verge, New York Times, a couple other sources as well. But essentially the whole idea is Facebook has been plagued by publishers for a number of years, or rather vice versa. Publishers have been plagued by Facebook for a number of years, and that a lot of their content that they usually keep behind a paywall or a subscription service like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, sites
gets
like
shared
that,
on Facebook all the time.
Get shared on Facebook all the time. Specifically through the Instant Articles feature, which, if you don't know about Facebook Instant Articles, is essentially pulls in content from a publisher's website into Facebook's own browser and scrapes it of UI, ads, and other stuff. So you just have the content and it's just in Facebook's own browser. So as you can imagine, publishers have been pretty pissed about this for a number of years. I know we watched a video earlier today about how essentially Facebook has been allowing fake accounts and non-genuine content distributors to take content from content creators, post it as their own, and
go viral.
Get all the viral activity.
Right. Every celebrity's been doing that.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And they all post the same stuff.
And they all post the same videos because it's probably the same social media management agency that's doing it. Right, like I'm like Marlon Wayans is not understanding how to use this to the T to drive viral videos in that kind of manner that frequently, right? But give whoever the agency is props. They're kind of beating around the system, saying, "Let's not create great content. Let's just repurpose already known great content."
Because why not? It's super easy. It's very, very doable, and it works.
Right, because at the end of the day, majority of people don't care where it's coming from. It's how they're digesting it. Right? Like, you're not sitting there like, oh, he didn't give credit to the guy. You're like, no, that's cool. I laughed, I cried, I was scared, whatever it is. I liked it, shared it. Doesn't matter, and I'm moving on. Now, to the content creator, that's the issue. And I think it goes even for publishers or, Wall Street Journals and the New York Times where they're losing a lot of revenue because of it. Mm-hmm. Right? Even when it comes to, like, not like video content, but journalism at its truest core, they kind of lose value in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So the video that in question is it came out a number of years ago. It's from Kurzgast. In a nutshell, they create a bunch of really cool, really well designed kind of explanation videos with a little bit of editorial process. But they released a video essentially on how Facebook is stealing billions of views. And the short answer is Facebook's algorithm prefers Facebook's own native video player, which means that if you're a YouTube creator and you want to direct all your traffic to YouTube to get that ad revenue, that CPM from YouTube as a creator, when you post to Facebook, your video is going to get less engagement and less activity.
Obviously.
Simply because
Right.
you didn't post it in.
But that makes
Facebook's
it makes
video.
sense for Facebook in the purest form, right?
It makes sense for Facebook.
In the purest form for that platform, yeah. Because if they did autoplay for every YouTube video that's posted as well, it's a lot.
I mean, no, I agree with you there, but essentially what this created was like a secondhand economy of people taking content from YouTube, from Vimeo, from other sources, re-uploading it to Facebook under their own name, their
Getting
own
a
profile,
following.
getting a following, and getting essentially credit in the eyes of their
Right.
viewers.
No. Right.
for
I get
creating
it.
that content.
Yeah,
It's
I understand
literally
it.
stealing.
It is stealing. It is. That's why I say I think it's a backdoor way of growing your following and growing your likes and shares and all that other stuff when it comes to shareability of
That
your content.
95% of popular pages on Facebook do.
100%. Like
100% of 95%.
100% of 95% do it, right? But it's true. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how, unless you connect some type of copyright software into Facebook. Well, they kind of do to this day. They do kind
they
of like
do.
YouTube does, but you'd have to connect it to not just like big publishers, but to the Phil DeFrancos of the world, right? That they'd have to scan Phil DeFranco's videos and see who's sharing Phil DeFranco's videos on Facebook and say you're copyright banned because you used something that was copyrighted via YouTube Phil DeFranco show, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's not there though.
That's the thing. Is like it's not like this software doesn't exist. It's like YouTube is really aggressive, perhaps arguably too aggressive when it comes to protecting copyright. Taking down entire channels just because you used a segment of a song that was like on Sony's license and. For whatever reason, it got flagged. But Facebook, in this very same process with access to reasonably the same amount of resources, doesn't have this copyright protection, doesn't have this software. They're not putting in the effort. Granted, this specific video that we're in question is a couple years old, so I'm pretty sure they've come a long way since then.
The question I have is, how did you find out about this news?
I'm not on Facebook. I found out on The Verge.
Is The Verge paid?
No, The Verge isn't.
It's just I'm just curious more than anything else that this whole idea of premium paid journalism is a very archaic.
It's a little outdated.
A little bit model of how things used to be and not how things are.
Are you saying news is a right?
In the age of information, I think it becomes it because one, I think there's twofold thing. From a cultural standpoint, people question news now because of news outlets that want to shock and awe and get information out faster than actually verifying a lot of things, facts, versus fiction, or versus a good story. I think journalists in their own right feel that they are pressured more than anything else to be the authentic selves of what they really want to say sometimes.
You do get paid for eyeballs.
You do. That's the issue, right? So I think in this day and age, I think that it's a twofold approach. Is one that, and the second one is because of so much information out there that I feel a lot of people are reluctant to pay because there's so much information.
Absolutely.
And to that point, I'm glad you brought that up. It goes into my next point is that the media briefing did a poll recently where they were trying to figure out how many publishers people get their journalism from on an average weekly or monthly basis, and this pretty much comes out to about 3% say 1 or 2 sources, about 33% say 3 to 8 sources, 39%, the largest segment, says 9 to 15 sources, and 25%, still a quarter of their users, get their content from over 15 sources. Now, I mean, what is a source? Is that my friend? Is that, Joe up the street? Is that like a publisher that's just reblogging?
Headline on Twitter.
Reblogging that's reblogged or something like that. So like that is kind of in question, but this does kind of come to a very interesting point that it used to be that you lived at home. I'm from St. Pete, so my family had a subscription to the St. Pete Times.
Right, exactly. One local newspaper that everybody shares.
Exactly, yeah. And then maybe you knew somebody who had like a New York Times, or maybe your dad was like really into finance and he had like Wall Street Journal or something like that. But on average, you really didn't have more than 2 newspaper subscriptions per household. But now we're getting our content from all over the place, from 9 to 15 sources, and sometimes even over that. Just to get the news that we regularly digest. Now, what if you had to pay $10 a month for every single one of those sources?
That's what I'm saying. It's like Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon Prime, so forth. Like, cutting the cable gets expensive, right? So having this idea of your paid subscription for your news and, premium journalism can get very pricey, especially when majority of people are not digesting on a regular basis, but through a passive way, right? Like, you don't actively go, like, I'd say majority of people, again, I'm not throwing out statistics or anything, but I think majority of us don't actively seek the news. I think it's coming to us. It comes to you now.
Anymore, there's no point.
Right, because you're on every platform and you're discovering your news now on different platforms like Facebook, Twitter, even Instagram, whatever it is. And there's no tunnel vision of news at 6 anymore, right? There's no one newspaper like St. Pete Times in the St. Pete, Tampa area that everyone reads. So I think it's just I feel that Facebook's a little more innovative, and I'm interested to see how they set this up. But to me, just from the whole idea of Wall Street Journal, I think it's still archaic to me. I can't wrap my head around it.
I'm glad you brought up the comparison to Netflix and Amazon, because like a lot of people that I've seen in response to this in the comments section have kind of seen this idea that, well, Facebook's trying to create a Netflix for journalism. There's a whole idea that, like, when you go to Netflix, you're not getting just 20th Century Fox movies and TV shows. You're not just getting Fox Searchlight or Weinstein Company or whatever. It's not focused. You're getting a variety of content from a variety of sources. It's all curated and updated on a monthly basis. So in that comparison, like, that is kind of a lot of the idea behind this, is that maybe it's again, there's no official details from Facebook about this, so we don't know how it's going to work. We don't know if it's going to be one single payment that you make to Facebook that gives you access to all this content, or if it's just creating an e-commerce platform where you can get subscriptions to multiple sources. Right. Let's assume for the moment that it's the former, that it's the Netflix of journalism. So how do you think that would affect how news is digested and distributed? And this idea that you pay a, let's say, $10, $15 monthly fee, and then you have access to Wall Street Journal, access to New York Times, or whatever, and you have access to all that paid journalism content from one source under one subscription. How do you think that is going to affect the distribution of news?
I think people are going to, the greed of companies when it comes to, or the desperation of companies when it comes to journalism, they're going to just post it first, right?
How do you mean?
So if Wall Street Journal starts, I'm just using them as an example, right, has breaking news or news they want to talk about or subject matter, most likely they're not the only journalist that is following that story.
Right.
The person that wants advertising dollars is going to break that news first.
In terms of sending them back to their own website that has
Yeah.
advertising dollars on
That's
it.
free.
Okay, got you.
Right? Because it's all about who finishes the race first, not, the marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I slightly disagree. I think that's a little bit more with TV and broadcast journalism than it is.
Early bird gets the worm in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There is a lot of breaking news that comes out through newspapers, especially this year. Jesus Christ. But
Every year it gets more and more.
yeah. Every year it gets more and more, but with print journalism, there is still that vetting process. There's somebody who has to fucking sit there and
Fact check, right? I
fact
get it.
check, running through it.
And
We'll assume
I
that's still a thing.
And I appreciate true journalism. I appreciate, right? So I read the Players Tribune, right, which is an athlete-based blog, basically, of news for sports, but it's not put out in a timely manner where breaking news, ESPN style. It is, a athlete talking about his issues with PEDs, right? It's a great story. It's great journalism. Maybe in that aspect, how people can digest those kind of things. But then you're looking at ESPN where they have the paid model for ESPN of not breaking news articles, but more premium content, and it's failing. It's falling flat on its face. I just don't. It's just hard for me to digest on a regular basis how it's sustainable in some type of way. I guess I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think ad revenue is probably the biggest driver of news networks right now.
It has to be.
So actually getting people to pay for that, I think, is definitely going to be very hard.
Like I said, I'm curious. I think Facebook is innovative in their space, so I can't see them especially how disruptive they want to be in not just in all media. That they're like, oh yeah, paid wall for normal journalism makes sense. I think it's bigger than that. I'm just very, very curious to see what that is, if there is even anything.
Well, I think the subscription. So we and I say we, and I mean us, dirty hippie millennials.
There you
go. We have kind of grown up in an interesting space where, older end of the millennial spectrum, we're kind of caught between this old world and new world as far as our media digestion. And what I mean by that is that, we remember getting in. Our only place of getting news was TV, was the news networks, was your local paper or something like that. And, you only had access to that, either through cable, your whatever subscription. You're paying some sort of subscription. So, people were getting the money. But there was ad revenue supporting all those models. And what happened was, we kind of moved over to more free content.
Correct.
Model with the advent of the internet, with the distribution of content, and with it being so easy for you to find whatever news you wanted online, completely accessible for free. So when we hear subscription for New York Times, it's it sounds a little bit weird, but it's what the hell do you think people were doing before? It's they were subscribing to New York Times.
Yeah, I get it, but that's before, right?
Yeah.
It evolves. The paywall from paper to digital.
But they've always had ads.
They did.
They've always had subscription model.
Right.
They've had the Sunday special where they give it out for half price or whatever to get those eyeballs and distribution and reach and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is this is not it's the same model. So how can we say shame on you for being greedy and wanting money from subscribers when it's literally 1/3 of how they've gotten money?
How they used to get money. It's all about progression, right? So it is difficult for me to sit there and think, oh, they used to do it that way, so that means they can keep doing it that way just in a different medium, right? Oh, it's newspaper and print to a digital platform where people kind of digest it. No, the whole industry around them changed, right? So it is hard to take that same business model and say, let's take this exact thing and put it somewhere else and it will work. You change your environment, right? When in Rome, you literally took your old way of doing it, the process, and say, let's not evolve the process. Let's just pick it up and move it somewhere else from Chicago to New York, and it's going to work exactly the same. New York might work very different than Chicago.
But think about it.
Just to be honest, and this is more of a question than a statement. And we're saying that there's all these sources now that are free that we're getting news from and stuff like that. But how credible really are they? With that pay, you're getting the Wall Street Journal. Without that pay, you're getting some schmuck that posts memes half the time.
Right? And that's the thing. But that's where I feel that the validity of media and news kind of lost touch, right? When I see people sharing stories from liberalhouse.com or conservativenewsdaily.com, I'm like, they're like, see, I told you. And I'm like,
right.
You literally went to a blog that fits your agenda.
Is only doing it for the ad revenue, not for real news.
But so I understand what you're saying is the validity of it, but just because it's behind a paywall doesn't mean
it doesn't. It doesn't. Just because, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, just because that is the case, that means that the behavior of how people think about media is going to be like, oh, it's better now because it's behind a paywall.
I think at least as a marketing tactic, it makes sense.
It does, but people are always going to have that one eye up, like looking like, is this really valid? Is it really worth it? Are they really telling the truth?
If you look at compensation models, though, for a lot of blog writers and digital journalists and stuff like that, a lot of them are built off of a CPM. So if you write an article,
that's what I'm saying.
You're getting paid off the eyeballs and stuff like that. But that doesn't lead to hard-hitting journalism. All that leads to is clickbait.
Exactly.
Like without the subscription model, so what? It gets 100,000 less views. If it's hard-hitting journalism, it's hard-hitting journalism, and somebody needs to be telling that story, and that person needs to be compensated somehow.
Right.
And it can't just be off of a CPM. It needs to be from a source that says we are entitling and enabling you to go out there and do journalism. Don't worry about views, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. We need you to go out there and tell a story.
Well, that's when you need a very passionate person like yourself to go out there and put this news network together.
Again, yes, but then that same exact model was in the New York Times 15 years ago. It worked.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that movie with Mark Ruffalo about the Catholic Church?
Searchlight? Spotlight? Searchlight, Spotlight. Fix that in post.
Yeah. One of them. You know what that story's about, right?
Yeah.
What?
Well, was it the New York Times? I thought it was Boston Chronicle.
No, not the New York Times. I'm saying newspaper.
Yeah.
Of
them going out and doing hard-hitting journalism.
And the newspaper not wanting to run with it.
Full disclosure, I did not see that movie.
Well, I did. But
you ever read The Fountainhead?
No.
By Ayn Rand?
I had a libertarian roommate once. Does that count? He would not shut the fuck up about it, and I'm working with two of them now.
Hey, that's one of my favorite books.
Well,
all right,
read it.
Don't talk shit about Ayn Rand.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be flaws even in that, and because of that, it loses validity, especially in today's day and age, right?
Yeah.
So if you mess up one time, everyone thinks you're a fraud, especially in media.
Yeah.
Right? You say one thing out of line, you're like, see, I told you. Even though everything else prior to and after could be straight facts.
Right.
Or if you appear in a Game of Thrones episode.
Or that. We won't get into all of that now.
Rest in peace, Ed Sheeran.
Hey, we're looking out for you, man. Love you. Can't wait for your new single.
Jeff loves you.
He loves you now. Discount John Mayer.
I had never heard about you before Sunday. Sorry.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, you're saying, oh, well, people will appreciate journalism if they go beyond the paywall. I'm like, I think that's well and gone of how much bad, especially in this political culture we have now, how negative media is being portrayed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Now putting it behind a paywall just like make it even worse. It's like I'm gonna pay for you to lie to me now.
Yes.
Even though it might not be true, that is the perception at this time. And for me, I digest news from a very passive manner. I'm almost positive you and you both do as well, right? Mostly. Like you run into it, you don't look for it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right?
I
look for it by going to sources.
You probably do more than either of us.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, for me, I don't go to... It's the funniest thing. Like, I'm sports analogy. I don't go to ESPN to get the breaking news. I go to Twitter.
Right.
because journalists are going to post on Twitter before they post on ESPN.
Yeah.
Unless it's gossip, though, those are probably true.
But again, to bring it back just a little bit, we're not talking about breaking news.
I know you're talking about journalism, where it takes months maybe to break a story because you actually have to do all the fact checking. I get that.
See, that would be dope if it was like top quality content pieces that were written and were like really really
saying.
cool,
Like
like
the Players
behind
Tribune.
enemy lines
That's
of
what I'm
like
saying.
Iraq or something like that. Like I would totally pay for that.
Players Tribune does that, and I think it's a great model for them, even though that's a free model. I feel that Undisputed for sports, I think they do a great job. It's about inside content, right? It's hard from, like I said, I think in this landscape, it's difficult because of the political issues we're having with media, that at this time, regardless of how great and intricate they are, it's all about left and right and wrong, right? What side are you on? If you're media on the right side, you're wrong. If you're on the left side, you're right, vice versa. So when it comes to this kind of thing, like we found out that, Russia was involved and we did all this digging, people will be like, did you really? Because my conservativenewsdaily.co says differently.
So no. I'm moving on. I'm glad you brought that up, and that is so. Let's fast forward to a year from now.
Yes.
Right. And it is
I am
July
still
of
young and handsome.
2018.
Yes.
You're young and handsome as ever. You'll look the same age
That's
as
right.
always. But all right. So let's say that Facebook's implemented this model. Whatever. Everything's behind a paywall now.
Right.
What do you think that's going to mean as far as the distribution of paid versus free content on Facebook specifically? So what I mean is that, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, all those things that we've been talking about this entire time are now behind a paywall. Maybe you get 5-10 articles a month, whatever, with this service and stuff like that. But if you aren't paying for it, you're not getting that news. The only other news you are getting is from blogspot.conservative.co.uk.co.
Right.
Now you're only getting the shitty news.
Now you're only getting the shitty news. I will also add the asterisk that just because your content is free doesn't mean it's shitty.
Correct.
But yes, you're only exclusively
You're
getting
flooded
news.
with
You're flooded with news and articles and clickbait headlines, and none of them are coming from anything reputable that you've heard from.
Here's the question. It kind of goes back past this. It's more of the behavior of kind of the data that we've been given, right? That if, say, CNN, Fox, CNBC, C-SPAN, so forth and so forth, actually did not get lazy at journalism for the last 10 years of the tech age, of the digital internet age that's been going on, of social media and everything else, if they didn't get lazy, do you think that behavior or distrust would still be there?
I do want to say I don't think they maybe even got lazy. If you think about it, say there was, and these are just completely off the top of my head, 5 credible news sources. And they were all credible. They were all reporting the news, and it was all kind of an essential area that was, kind of segmented.
Right.
And these people did here or whatever. Then one guy comes in and says, wow, this one article did really, really well and played off of fear or played off of something.
Right.
And it was just like, I'm just going to make...
That's what I'm saying. That's lazy.
It wasn't even lazy. It was literally like I guarantee someone saw that as a business opportunity.
Somebody had to do work in order to do that.
Yeah, and then they went and did it, and then everyone else was like, well, now we're not getting any views off of this. Now we have to compete with them.
But that's what I'm saying.
Keep our jobs.
It became to a very reactive stage of how people were digesting information, and it became more of a race rather than about true journalism, right? And I think that's where people lost trust in a lot of media, even from the left or the right. Doesn't matter. I think left lost trust in Fox News, as right lost trust in CNN, right? Doesn't matter. They both had their issues. So I think it's because of that. It's because of the internet and because of the digital age that these old media companies didn't know how to react. So they tried to do what was best for the bottom line rather than what's best for journalism in the industry. And now I think they're trying to catch up at this point, saying we need to do something.
Best
right?
for society.
What's best for the world and for the people rather than what's best for our bottom line and our pockets. I get it. Trust me, I appreciate good journalism, right? I appreciate good writing. We have great writers here. I appreciate it. But it is difficult in this time to create a paywall in this very sensitive time. To me, I just feel it's difficult.
Keep in mind, the only people who are really brought up in any of this, again, I'll add this third and last asterisk, that this is all speculative. Facebook hasn't come out and released anything about the topic. But like every publisher that's been mentioned so far in regards to this Facebook subscription model are reputable newspapers that have literally been around for the past 30, 40, 50 years.
No, I agree. I get it.
So it's not like, I'm just going to log on in October and register, jeffsthoughts.blogspot.com.
I would subscribe to that, Jeff, by the way.
Oh my God. You guys would, your minds would be blown. But he did a gunshot to the head for our audio listeners.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't think this is about someone just going like, oh yeah, I want to get mine.
No, I get it. But you understand that those same newspapers are still the ones getting finger pointing, saying you're not credible.
Because they're the largest.
They're the largest.
But I mean,
they put out the most news and content. Because they have to. That's their jobs.
And they've been around the longest.
But they do get discredited a lot. They're putting a paywall behind that.
Well, I guarantee it's competition that are spreading those rumors.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, there is another piece of news in all of this, and that is there's another service out there that's doing a subscription news model, and supposedly in competition with Facebook, and that is Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan has added create a website and essentially create a paywall to it in order for you to get access to selfies and fashion tips
of Lindsay Lohan
and blog.
The Kardashians do that too. They do that now.
Do they have a paywall?
Yeah, they have a paywall.
Oh, shit. All right, so maybe. Maybe
Fanatics,
Lindsay isn't exactly 100% original here, but I do believe in her message. And that, she wants to get compensated for people
caring about her life.
I mean, it's essentially entertainment.
Yeah, true. At that point,
I'm all about passive entertainment sometimes when it comes to celebrities.
You know what I mean, though?
Exactly.
At that point, what's the difference between her posting a 5-minute video of herself and a 5-minute, some sort of content on TV? A little Adult Swim show or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the difference if you're getting the same amount of views? How is that not original content that people are using as entertainment?
There are a lot of small-based subscription model, Patreon supported.
No, here's the thing. I agree. Lindsay Lohan's probably a bad example of it, right? But if
I brought her up.
The idea,
example.
Like if Donald Glover put out his own network,
on his own app all day.
You know what I mean? Like, we would digest accordingly. Lindsay Lohan fans might not. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I get the idea, and I appreciate that people are taking ownership of their content, which they should, right? I think Phil DeFranco set himself up very well, where he's like, I took it off YouTube. Just in case YouTube ever said, go away, he's like, I still have my fan base, and I can still create my own content that people can digest, right? And I agree, take ownership of it. It's kind of like, as an artist, you own your masters when it comes to music. You take ownership of it. Now, that's very difficult in today's day and age when it comes to artists, but I appreciate that concept. You just have to be damn good at it, right, to do that. Like, it can't be some passive content where I barely want to watch it if it's free. Mm-hmm. Right now, if you put Atlanta behind a paywall on his own outside of Netflix, I would pay for it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I would also watch a show where he makes his own SpiderMan series.
Is he on Netflix? Is Atlanta on Netflix?
No, it's on FX.
Yeah, it's on FX.
FX has its own paywall.
I was literally about to peace out.
Yeah. I wish it was. The FX has its own paywall.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I'm saying. It gets expensive when you cut the cord.
It really does.
Mm-hmm. That many networks.
So, I mean, what do you guys think about the future of the subscription model? And now in a more generalist sense, now we're encompassing a Netflix, Hulu, Lindsay Lohan's, Facebook's.
I think that it was, what did I say? I'd say 8 years it's been around, right? Actively growing ever since cable cutting has become a thing, right? Obviously, TV and movies were the first thing to go, right? Rest in peace, Blockbuster. We get it.
I mean, I think the reason why is because Netflix. I don't want to say they came up with the online subscription model because I don't think they did, but they definitely became the masters of it very early.
Yeah. So iTunes revolutionized the idea of digesting digital content, right? And then Netflix looked at them like, I want to watch really whatever I want to watch on your, playlists, but I want to do it on a per month basis, not per show, not per episode, not per, movie. I'll pay $10 a month and I can watch whatever I want, how long I want. And then you get royalties off it. That makes complete sense. Music kind of followed suit. And now journalism's trying to do the same thing. I think it's still at its infancy. What I mean by that is now everyone wants to do it because it's becoming a habit. But then I think the end user is going to look at it and be like, this is getting really expensive. Like,
Depends on how much you use it.
Well, that's the thing. I complained about, how much my cable bill was when I had cable.
That's because I never used cable.
Well, yeah, but it still gets expensive though, right? So now you're going to not cord cut, but unsubscribe at that point to things you don't currently use, right?
Right.
So once Game of Thrones is over, most likely a lot of people are going to cut off HBO Go.
Maybe. Yeah. But they'll still come back next year.
They'll come back next year and pay, X amount to watch all the episodes and leave again.
I'll keep my HBO subscription active as long as they're making new last week tonight.
Which the other thing is a lot of people won't cancel their subscriptions and still won't use it either.
Right, and that's the whole gym membership model, right? Everyone pays for a gym membership.
Oh, I'll use it again.
And they forget. But it might start adding up. Think of how much media you digest on a regular basis, from
too much
entertainment to news to personal, whatever it is. We digest a lot. Now, add that up, say, I'll average it, $5 per
source.
Per source. Looking at over like
100 sources.
Exactly. It gets expensive, right? It gets really expensive.
That's still not bad to spend on entertainment a month.
On top of what you're paying for cable, on top of what you're paying on
the cable and internet,
all that stuff. See what I'm saying?
Like all those other things.
Yeah.
So like,
can't watch it without internet.
It used to be that you just had your cable subscription, then you had access to all the content. Sure, it was time gated, but you had access to all the content.
You know what's funny? It used to be the other way around. You used to have to pay premium for cable, and then internet used to be like a side thing, right?
Yeah.
Now it's totally opposite. It's like you got really fast cable, and you know what? We'll throw in 60 channels for $10 a month more.
Yeah.
Like, it's the total opposite. It's because of that, right? It's because of how we're digesting content in a subscription manner for all these channels that we want to subscribe to, whatever it may be. I just feel that there's going to be a time where we have to collectively come back together, and not from a cable standpoint, but something similar to it, where there has to be some type of, we can mix and match, and it actually discounts you based on the subscriptions you have, right? So if you have Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, Apple Music, and name me another one, HBO Go, right? Instead of paying $50 a month, I'm paying $35 for all of them, right? You're packaging them. Packaging a subscription model, because now I'm not paying now. Whether it all plays nice together, who gets what's the share of it?
Completely unrelated company to come in.
You would, and that is a very tough aspect of it. But I feel that for the consumer, that helps my life. That helps me, right?
Essentially going back to cable.
That's what I'm saying. You are in a digital manner. You are, and that's the tough part, because in essence, it kind of makes sense for you, right? But now you get to pick and choose just your channels, not a bulk of your channels. Right, you get all the HBOs. I don't want all the HBOs. I just want one HBO. No, you get all of them. You got to pay $20 more a month. No, I just want one of them. You know what I mean? But I also want ESPN, ESPN2. I want whatever X amount of shows, and that can bulk up into a percentage off of whatever that is. I think that just makes sense to me. It's a little more easy to digest. Say I'm paying, then I can quantify in my head. I'm paying $35 a month to digest all my content, rather than I'm paying $10 here, $10 here, $11 here, $8 here, and then you kind of lose count of what you're subscribed to. Like, to me, it makes a little more sense for me to package up things.
It's interesting. So all right, so we have this one idea of packaging up everything, right? And then you kind of have the iTunes model of paying per.
That hurts. That physically hurts.
But the reason why is because the cost, right? It was like $1.99 to
Per
$5.99 per episode, and then
$20
it was like, $20 per
season.
season,
Right.
yeah, and stuff like that. And so all that stuff adds up. But there is another service out there. It's called Blendle, and essentially what they are is it's a news, print journalism focused website where essentially you pay 20 to 50 cents per article. To digest it. So like, does the reason why, like you said, you don't want all of HBO. You just want the one HBO. You want to watch the Mayweather fight, or whatever.
That's pay-per-view, but okay.
Whatever. Insert sports thing here. So is the reason why an iTunes model of paying per usage cost prohibitive because the costs that they set, or if you were to equalize the cost to something that's a little bit more digestible, a little bit more affordable to something, 20 to 50 cents per article, or $50 to $1 per episode, or something like that is a little bit more reasonable for you to
for someone like
for.
Say myself, or I don't know how your behavior is on Netflix or what your past history looks like, but for mine that makes sense because I probably wouldn't spend $10 a month.
Yeah.
But the binge watchers out there, it can get very expensive. Now, if you're saying you can go subscription based or you can go pay per based, right? Mm-hmm. That might make sense for some.
Just
Right? You give them
option.
options to say you don't digest as much as like $10 worth, so you can do it this way, right? Or you can go
Then they're just
subscription based.
losing money.
Not really.
that
Well, yeah,
point.
well they are, because if I pay for $10 a month and I don't digest $10 worth of royalties, then it's fine, right? Then they're making more money because I'm not
Right.
using as much data as they collectively think. But for you that might binge watch, leave it on 24 hours, 7 days a week.
And I get that more
It
people
might
might
eat up a
subscribe
lot.
with that model, but I still think they would lose money in the end.
Yeah, they would. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how the margins are for subscription base versus how much money they're gaining versus losing per subscriber.
Paying those royalties.
Right. I don't know what that looks like. But for me, I'm just saying bundling it up because I have a lot. Bundling it up just makes more sense to me because I'm like, then I know how much I'm paying for
And you have a
everything I need
family.
to do. Right. And I think for you, like if you're paying for Spotify, if you're paying for Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all these other subscription models, and you're like, I'm paying like $60 a month right now. Just on entertainment, on subscription entertainment. Can I get a discount since I've used them all? You know what I mean? I'm using them all on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I'm to me, it just makes a little more sense. But again, I can't see them all playing nice either, right? They compete over what shows what exclusive shows they're going to get. So it's hard for me to see them playing nice.
No, I've heard that the fights over shows with this new streaming model are just as bad as fights over syndication rights
Right.
back in the 80s.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
90s, and,
It is.
there was I can't even remember, but it was for syndication rights for Friends. I think it was produced by NBC produced Friends or something like that. I can't even remember. But
I think it was NBC.
Who essentially the fight over syndication rights for Friends went to triple the value of the production of the show.
Yeah. Seinfeld as well. Seinfeld was a fight, I believe. The Beatles, when they went to Apple, was huge when it comes to royalties. Mm-hmm. So if they're bidding over that, I can't see them playing nice over subscription payments.
Yeah. All right. Last thoughts of the day. What are your guys' favorite subscription services?
Spotify, 100%. I use it for probably 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
No lie.
I'd say Netflix and Spotify. Spotify for mostly work and car rides. Netflix for home because I think they are producing really good content lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I've got to say, sorry everybody, it's HBO Now. Game of Thrones, just premiered last week. We got a whole season ahead of us. I rely on last week tonight. Westworld is bae, so I need that in my life.
$120 a year worth for 2 shows.
For The Wire.
For
Yeah.
The Wire?
The Wire is on HBO Now.
All the miniseries they put out.
6 Feet Under. Come on, you have access to everything they've ever made. The
True
Sopranos,
Detective.
True Detective.
That's true.
The Night
That's
of.
true.
Some of the best television that's ever been made.
That's
Guys,
true.
it's not just TV. It's HBO.
We don't get paid for that. You know that, right? Anyway, appreciate everyone. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Where do you think it's going? Do you think Facebook's right or wrong? Even though they haven't really said that they're doing it, but do you? If they did, would it be something you're interested in?